we grade some of the rest of the infielders. Trea Turner, Weston Wilson, Garrett Stubbs, JT Realmuto, and Alec Bohm. You're getting your season-long grades today here on the PHLY Phillies podcast. Next. Hello and welcome into the PHLY Phillies podcast with that fancy new opening. Oh, nice job.
I like
Tyler.
it. I like it.
Oh, I'm not taking credit for that.
Very sexy.
I just plug in the graphic and stuff.
Very
I didn't make
demure.
that.
Very, very mindful, Tyler.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But this is the Phillies postseason, not postseason,
Space.
season. Brought to you by Ace Hardware Home Services. Go to acehardwarehomeservices.com to get started on your next project. Jamie Lynch, Renee Washington, Tyler Zulli. The crew held it down for me yesterday as I was out at the lovely TrueMark Financial golf outing, benefiting their foundation for financial literacy and awareness in the youth.
Did you win?
No. Me and Rick in sales and two friends, Joe and Brandon, did not win. We, showed up, I guess. It was respectable. I think a -6. And the winner was apparently -20 or 21.
Okay.
So, in those events, you can buy mulligans to donate to charity. Well, there's a lot of mulligans and, you can buy your way into a nice score.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So it's all to benefit of charity. So it was a good time. But thanks for holding it down yesterday, gang.
Of course.
And we have to get back in the classroom today. We have the Ice Queen, Professor Ice Queen over here, cracking knuckles, ready to crack some skulls on the grade books. Red marker out. I think everybody in the chat says I'm the easy grader they wish they had in college. And then Tyler usually kind of is somewhere in the middle of us or, one way. So today we're going to get to, he usually is either with us or in the middle of us, not, because we're usually not, we're you're like a B and I'm like an A
really
minus.
Nice.
They're
you're
usually,
such a fluffy grader.
baseball's hard.
You're just, I feel like you're such you would definitely be the college professor that, first of all, would not give any homework or anything like that. And just you showed up, you get an A.
Yeah. Go watch this postseason baseball game and do a little 3-paragraph write-up on it.
A for you. Everybody gets A's.
So today, some interesting names in the classroom. We have Trea Turner. He's important to this team. We have JT Realmuto. He's quite important to this team. And, of course, Alec Bohm at the hot corner. And then two kind of supplementary players, Garrett Stubbs and Weston Wilson. So, Renee, I will give you choice. I'll give my grade first, but which player would you like to start with today?
I think we should start, last time we jumped right into Bryce Harper. Yeah. I think we reverse it this time. Let's ease in. Let's go.
Give the people the things they don't care about first, which is Garrett Stubbs' grade.
It could be Weston Wilson.
You want to start with Weston?
Let's go with WW.
Okay.
And then we'll go to...
Because Garrett Stubbs, hopefully this is the last time we
I think we can get to Stubbs last. I think we do him last as a quick run through.
All right, Weston Wilson. We'll kick it off there. Weston Wilson on the year. It's tough because it's just less than 100 at-bat sample size. It's not huge. He only got 24 at-bats the year prior. So there's not a ton to even compare it to. Comparing major league and minor league numbers is a fool's errand. If you want to go that deep, have fun. I am not. I would say utility-wise, valuable to the team. Really good chance he's a bigger contributor next year. His on-base plummeted. His batting average dipped. And again, this is a 24 at-bat sample size to a 98 bat sample size. Really hard. Here's Tyler's graphic. 40 games played. Slash line 284, 347, 489. A 132 OPS plus, which is pretty impressive. 3 home runs, 10 RBIs, 11 extra base hits, 3 stolen bases. And of course, who could ever forget the Psycho game on August 15th? I actually have a Topps trading card commemorating the moment. Vince,
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, Vince was like throwing them out. I guess he bought a bunch of them that day. So he did get immortalized on a baseball card this year.
Yeah.
For me, it's just like it is what it is. Like the grade was kind of tough on this one. I'm gonna go. I was between a C+ and a B-.
Okay.
I think I'll go B- just because of the small sample size nature of it and not a lot to compare it to. Relatively pretty happy with what Weston Wilson gave you on a small sample size.
Yeah, so I want to just preface this by saying, first of all, you guys are hilarious in the chat. I see Larry's backyard barbecue. You've got some grades in there for Weston as a C. I know that sounds so good. Would love some good barbecue right now.
I'd love a piece of
Iverson is talking about
sauce
Alec Bohm's grades, which we'll get to. I don't even want to read your comment yet, PSU Iverson, until we get to Alec Bohm. And I know Steven's still thinking about trading Bohm. When it comes to Weston Wilson, I do want to say, for the record, for today, he is my highest grade.
Whoa! Whoa!
So he is my.
This is gonna be an interesting day.
It's not gonna be a great day.
He's your highest grade? Oh, man.
I know it's not good. Today's actually a really bad day of grades for me. So Weston Wilson, as you mentioned, it was a small sample size last year. I know you guys are all shocked by me saying he's my highest grade.
Wow.
He did give you more at bats this year. So even though his splits are low,
we got a super chat from our man Real Prince Blue. He said Renee suspended for PEDs.
but he's not my highest grade for a good reason, guys. It's not like I gave him an A.
Okay.
Let me just say that, okay?
All right.
But I'm teasing it out for you guys. Teasing it out, okay? So obviously he did give us more at-bats this season than last year. 16 at-bats last year in 8 games. Had 88 in 41 games. And I think for what his role was as a utility man, honestly, Weston Wilson gave us not only the cycle, which was historic in itself, but also he gave us a scoreless inning that he pitched. He gave us to play in he's played almost every position, it feels like. And I think for Weston Wilson's role, as we've talked about so many times, I'm grading based on their expectation, based on their role, not comparing it to the other guys on the team. I think he was exactly what you needed him to be. He was solid. He was consistent. He gave you good at-bats. He gave you discipline at the plate. He gave you versatility. He gave you the piece of being able to fill in wherever needed. And I won't say impressed by Weston Wilson, but I was okay with Weston Wilson. Mm-hmm. He wasn't a guy that I was nervous about or was pissed off he wasn't in the lineup. But in fact, I kind of wanted to see Weston Wilson some more. And I thought that especially down the stretch, given how some of the others were struggling offensively, the Alec Bohms and different guys, although I didn't want to see Weston Wilson at third base, that part I didn't like. I liked him as a guy that
not a great third
in.
baseman. He's an emergency
Not a great third baseman at all. So looking at his numbers, looking at the fact that he did have a few home runs this season, 10 RBIs on the season in a very limited sample size, I actually gave
highest grade of the day.
Highest grade of the day is Weston Wilson with a B-. B-
is your highest of the day.
B- is my highest grade of the day, guys. My highest grade of the day. You heard it correctly. The only reason why I gave him a B- and not something higher is just because of the fact he did not help you at third base, which is not his fault. Essentially, he's not a third baseman, but if you're going to get put there, you got to do your part, period. And if you're also going to be someone that he was kind of one of the more utilized bench pieces compared to the others of the Buddies and Cals and Cody. So since you're that next man up, I think that we should have gotten a little bit more from him offensively. There's room for growth, room for improvement, but I think solid overall.
Yeah, I think he's in a bigger role next year.
Yeah, so
right,
I
Tyler,
give him a solid B-.
We have Professor Ice Queen's highest grade of the day there with a B-.
That's crazy to me.
I said what I said.
I was also a B-, but that is not my highest grade of the day. I will say that. Where are you?
Weston Wilson gets a C for me
okay.
Because Weston Wilson is exactly what we expect Weston Wilson to be. And if you play to a baseline of what we expect you to be, that's about an average grade, and you get a C.
Yeah.
Weston Wilson is very good against left-handed pitching. He is very average against right-handed pitching. This year, he had 44 at-bats against lefties. He had 44 at-bats against righties. He hit 341 against left-handed pitching. He hit 227 against left-handed pitching. Weston Wilson swings and misses too much for my liking, but he does have a little bit of pop. He is a versatile bench piece who can play a handful of different positions, and I think he is a solid baseline power, give you a little bit of pop off the bench type of reserve. He's a fine player for this organization. I think the strikeout rate is high, right?
Yeah.
You kind of know what he is. He's very, very good against fastballs. He hit 364 against fastballs this season. He hit 063 against sliders. He hit 0 against curveballs. He doesn't hit breaking balls particularly well.
He's Pedro Serrano?
He is basically Pedro Serrano. He squares up fastballs at a pretty good clip. He slugged them at almost a 640 clip. He is a fine bench piece for this team. I think he is going to make the roster next year. I think you're going to look to upgrade your bench a little bit. He's not going to be a top 2 guy off the bench, but he gets a C for me.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I was my gut. I told you guys I kind of write down a gut reaction and then look at the stats and numbers. And my gut was a C+ for Weston Wilson. I elevated it to a B-, I think, just because of the OPS plus. Honestly, kind of shocked me a little bit. And what Tyler said is exactly right.
And I think Scott brings up a fair point. Sosa should get a better grade than Weston Wilson. I think Sosa was better than Wilson this year, and I gave Sosa a C+, so Weston Wilson gets a C.
Yeah.
Same. I gave Sosa a B, and I gave Weston Wilson a B-. Like, I do think for his role, he was solid, but there are definitely areas that he needs to be better if he's going to be a top piece off the bench for them. So, Professor Ice Queen, I will embrace my name. What does that make you, Professor Fluffy?
Yeah, I'd be the hippy-dippy stone professor guy. It's just like, peace and love, man. Here you go. Here's an A. You tried really hard.
For everyone. You are really the Oprah of grades.
Get on out into nature and collect some leaves or something, man.
You guys tried. You put your effort into it.
And then Tyler's one that's actually grading people.
Yeah, he's deeper diving all of us.
Deep diving, punctuation, and he's really active with the red pen.
All right, next up, before we take care of some business and tell you about some friends of ours, do you want to go of the big 3 on today's card? Do you want to go Alec Bohm, JT Realmuto, or Trea Turner?
Definitely let's knock JT out because Trea and Alec are going to take some time.
JT, I'm very curious to see.
We have some business to handle.
I'm very curious to see where you
so
go.
Let's go JT first because the other 2 could take a little moment.
Okay. JT Realmuto, here's his stat lines. 99 games played, 266, 322, 429 slash line, an OPS plus of 109. 14 homers on the year, 47 RBIs, 34 extra base hits, and 2 stolen bags. A 1.84 pop time, still the best in baseball for a catcher. Defensively, the guy's aces. His arm is excellent. The pitching staff loves him. Some of the pitchers' numbers are way better with him and a backup catcher. So defensively, he's fine. Arm, fine. Athleticism, still fairly fine. He still looks like he can run well. But he had about 120 less at-bats this year than the year prior. He didn't really bounce back from the injury as well in the season. His batting average and OBP actually went up, which kind of surprised me because I wouldn't have guessed that before I dove into the stats. His slugging and OPS decreased, which does make sense because he seemed to be driving the ball less and moving runs like he had in the past. His OPS plus actually increased slightly. Kind of a strange year because my gut reaction was again C+.
Yeah.
Power and his RBIs dropped. I'm gonna go B-. It's better than what my gut said, just looking at the numbers. But you obviously want and need more from JT. The question is he on the backside of his prime here? So I'm gonna go B- for JT Realmuto. Professor Ice Queen, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Larry's Backyard Barbecue. Yeah, we're pretty much simpatico there. C+, B-.
All right, thank you, Professor Fluff. Listen,
B- is not like roses.
JT is also one of my higher graded players for the day. I won't say what his grade is quite yet. But JT, as I grade for the entire season, but I grade with a higher expectation for the postseason. And when you have been one of the best catchers in baseball for the last few years, and you go hitless in the NLDS, that immediately drops your grade down. We know he went 0-for-11 in the NLDS, 3 walks, and a .751 OPS, as you mentioned, in the regular season. Now, there are some numbers that are pretty alarming for JT Realmuto. Obviously, he's not getting any younger. None of us are, guys. We're all getting older. But he's also in a spot now where you can see a regression in his career. And I feel like for JT Realmuto, although he was still better than the average catcher in terms of his average, and also had the lowest single season OPS of his Phillies tenure, he also, the pop time, the arm strength, we're still there. So I was like, okay, we did see some good, response and play from him in terms of his pop time. He did have a 20% caught stealing rate, which is right below the league average of 21%. He had that 1.85 average pop time, which ranked the 97th percentile for the league in 2024. And even his arm strength on throws to second base, 82.6 mile per hour, which ranked 7th among catchers. But for JT Realmuto to offensively take such a major step back, we know about the injuries, which is concerning, the knee procedure, the different injuries he had. He got beat up this season, hit multiple times, and he was limited because of that. But you do have expectations of him as being one of the best catchers in baseball offensively. And so his F4, a 4.7, which is still higher than even someone like Will Smith of the Dodgers, who's headed to the World Series. But again, it all goes back to me the fact that JT Realmuto in the playoffs did not show up and was never the same after getting back from his knee procedure, to be honest. I give JT Realmuto a C+ on the season. Okay. I think he was average. And I think, unfortunately for him, we don't want or expect average from JT. But the reality is, this is who he is now.
I think
he is not going to be, I think it was an average season for him. His numbers weren't great. He is aging. He is regressing, unfortunately, offensively specifically. And I think it's now time to start thinking about the reality of who is the backup catcher. But I think for what he gave you and with how much he's played, you expect him to take a step back. It's now time for the Phillies to help support him and give him a better backup catcher. So C+ is my grade for JT Realmuto. And I think overall, he's 33. This is kind of what you expect from a catcher that's played so many games. It just, you cannot have an 0 for 11 and NLDS. That's unacceptable.
All right, Tyler, we got a B- and a C+, kind of.
Yeah, I think that
neighboring
those are
grades there. What do you got?
Those are relatively fair, and I think that Renee, you and I are going to agree on this one. I'm going to go with a C+ as well for this one because you're right. Defensively, the metrics are still there. I have questioned JT's pitch sequencing for quite some time now, but it's pretty obvious that Zach Wheeler is better when JT is on the mound. I think Christopher Sanchez is better, when JT's behind the plate. I think Christopher Sanchez is better when JT's behind the plate. The only one whose metrics actually were better with anybody else is Aaron Nola throughout the course of the season. It's strange, but it was true. JT is still a good defensive catcher. The pop time that you guys referenced is clearly still there. He still is one of the best catchers at throwing runners out at second base. Offensively, he was fine. You guys talked about the pop just really not being there as much. He really didn't square up a ton of balls this year under the 20th percentile. His whiff rate went up a little bit. His K rate was about the same as it was a season ago. The slugging dipped almost 30 points, and that is probably due in part to the fact that his doubles came down a pretty significant number. Mm-hmm. Now, granted, he did play significantly fewer games, but I don't ask JT to be a home run guy. I ask JT to be a doubles guy, to be a gaps hitter. JT is really, really good, or has been throughout his career, at going to right center field and driving the ball the other way with some power. His launch angle was down on just about every type of pitch this year, from a fastball to a breaking ball to an off-speed pitch. But the thing that I think got him a decent bit, he saw 180 off-speed pitches, namely changeups for the most part. Mm-hmm. But you could mix some other things in there. He hit 122 on off-speed pitches this year. He struck out 21 times in 49 at-bats on off-speed pitches. His exit velocity was 81 on the balls that he put in play. Offensively, JT has taken a step backwards, and I think he's probably going to continue to take a step backwards as he gets a little bit older. I have hope that maybe it's a stall year next year because he is healthy from the injury fully. But we talked about JT probably right about this point last year, where I feared that the offense kind of has plateaued. It's never going to. And I don't even know about plateaued, because I think a couple of years it's been decreasing. And I think now at this point it's pretty evident that he has been surpassed offensively by a handful of catchers. We talked about Adley Rutschman last year, had an awesome first half of the year, got hit in the hand midway through June, and was really never the same offensive player that he was. But there's a handful of guys now that I can name as offensive catchers that I would prefer over JT, where that answer a couple years ago was really not many, if any. Defensively, he still holds up. Offensively, I think he has taken a step backwards. His exit velocity on just about everything this year has gone down. Not like substantially, but he was under 90 miles an hour as an average this year. JT gets a C+ from me because of the defense, because of the caught stealing rate. The offense was not particularly strong this year.
I do actually want to add, because it's a great point you bring up.
The 0 for 11 is substantial.
The 0 for 11 is a problem.
Substantial in the postseason.
Huge problem. The offense is definitely what drops it, but what also helps in addition to the defense is when JT was out, I think that's also when we recognize how vital he is to this team, because Zach Wheeler, Ranger Suarez, Christopher Sanchez especially, had a huge, just you could tell they were off when they didn't have JT as catcher, and it was now Rafael Marchand and Garrett Stubbs every day. So even that of his importance to this team, when he's out there, when he's calling plays, and I know Zach Wheeler mentioned like his pitch calling it's seamless. We're on the same page. We understand. He knows what I throw best. I trust him. He trusts me. And that relationship is something that's really hard to try to duplicate and try to copy. And I think even that is something that when you look at JT, although the offense is regressing, his significance to help the pitching staff, especially the top 4 guys, be so consistent, so strong, have a great season, it is because of JT. So again, C+ and B- I think are relatively fair.
And Salvador Perez is a guy that's slightly older than JT Realmuto. Had like a remarkable season 4 seasons ago, then had like 2 seasons of, a little bit of regression. And not that the power ever returned, because I think Salvador hit like 125 RBIs that one year. He did kind of bounce back batting average wise, RBI wise, and all that. So, it's not to say that he can't still get better.
It's possible.
There's other examples out there of guys that age that were once great catchers, continuing to be great at a later age. So it's certainly possible he has a big year upcoming.
I think the conversation about like the amount of catchers that is growing for offensive, like you could talk about.
Catchers getting better, I think.
William Contreras is probably like one of the premier catchers. Cal Raleigh's been really good, especially with driving in runs.
They call him the big dumper?
The big dumper, they call him.
Big
34 home runs, 100 RBIs. You mentioned Salvi Perez having a bounce back year. Will Smith is always Mr. Consistent. Rushman, I think, will bounce back at post injury. Like that number of offensive catchers is starting to grow. And I think that Realmuto is slipping down that list.
It is like the evolution of the position, honestly.
Yeah,
but
it's getting
also,
better offensively.
To your point, I think if he can stay healthy and knowing that he did all the mechanical work on his hitting in the offseason, so if he can stay healthy, which could help with having a better backup. I know Seth mentioned that in the chat. So, yeah.
All right, well, let's take a minute here and tell you about some good friends of ours. And that is Bet365. Guess what? I did it again. I'm not Britney Spears, but I did it again. I put a winning parlay boost out there on Sunday for the people. It was Eagles money line and Saquon to score. Pretty simple, but it got boosted 2-1. We've had a 550 hit. We've had a 350 hit. So keep an eye out for our custom PHLY odds boosts. But Bet365, it's never ordinary there. They're letting me make odds boosts. Of course it's not going to be ordinary. But they have 90 million users worldwide. They pioneered live in-game betting, and they have the best early payout offers across the 4 major sports. And NBA is back. Keep your eyes peeled for a Flyers, Matvey Michkov, PHLY odds boost for a national game on Wednesday this week. Of course, you got college football going. It's all humming over at Bet365. They are boosting stuff constantly. Over 10,000 boosts every month to help put money in your pocket. And right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Use the code PHLY365 to sign up, deposit $10, and place a bet for $5 to get $200 in bonus bets. Bonus bets can be used on spreads, totals, player props, futures, and more. Early payout or offers are great. Make sure you're checking out the boosts every single month. And keep an eye out for our PHLY boosts. So download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Get that $200 in bonus bets when you bet $5. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER.
And although you may want to gamble on some sports and do some betting, you don't want to have to gamble on your floors and figure out what works best for your house. It's difficult when you're looking to shop for new rugs, carpets, flooring. And with Empire Today, they can help that process be a lot less stressful as you're trying to work through how does this hardwood floor look in my living room? How are these tiles match my bathroom? Does this carpet pair well with my bedroom? When you are looking to do any sort of home upgrades and renovations to your flooring, with Empire Today, you can trust that you're going to get convenience, great support, and also professionals that will help with you. We know the Empire Today jingle, but if you want to call them and check them out yourself, here's some of the benefits. They've got the shop at home convenience, or at Empire, you have the ability to look at how that room is going to be matching with the flooring from your house. Snap a picture, check out that new carpet, linoleum, the flooring, anything that you're looking to upgrade. See how it looks in your living room, in your kitchen, in your house. So the convenience of their virtual floor designer allows you to have a great opportunity to see how those floors look in any space. Plus, they have the ability to help you out. It can be so overwhelming. There are thousands of flooring options to choose from, and it's very overwhelming of figuring out the correct shade, the correct hues of color, which best goes. And so with their professionals that they have at Empire Today, they're also going to help get you what you need. Their philosophy is to help find what you need, not overwhelm you with thousands of choices and substitutes and options. So they want to give you the selections that make most sense for your home, for your budget, for your family. If you've got kids, if you've got pets, whatever you're looking for that you need in your house, with Empire Today, they can help with that because they pride themselves on their convenience, from their shop at home service to helping customers get the correct flooring for their home. So schedule a free in-home estimate today. All listeners also get an opportunity to receive $350 off as a discount when you use the promo code PHLY. Restrictions to apply, and head over to empiretoday.com/PHLY for more details. Empire Today, with the professionals that help get you connected with the right flooring for your home.
Empire Today. All right, welcome back in. This is the PHLY Phillies podcast, brought to you by our friends over at Ace Hardware Home Services. Visit acehardwarehomeservices.com to get started on your next project. All right, we covered Weston Wilson. We covered JT Realmuto. Let's leave Trea Turner hanging and get into Alec Bohm here, because I think this is a fascinating one. I am excited to see where you go here, Renee. If Weston Wilson was your highest grade. Look, I know there's a recency bias with the way the season ended, but let us not forget, Alec Bohm was probably the team's most consistent hitter from start to finish on the year. 143 games played, 280 slash line, 332, 448, a 117 OPS plus, 15 home runs, 97 RBIs, 61 extra base hits, only 5 stolen bags. He's not fast. Tied for fourth in doubles in Major League Baseball. And that's the thing with Alec Bohm. You know, there was hope with that body and frame that he was going to be able to add some power and become a 25 home run guy. That's not going to happen. What he needs to do is exactly what he did this year, and that's to become a consistent line drive doubles hitter. Feed those gaps, and I do not think he's a 4-hole hitter. I do not think that's where he's best fit. I would ideally say he's probably a great 5-hole hitter, but 4, I think he's out of place on this team. It's hard for me to be too negative. I know it didn't end well, but you know, as we talked about, he raised, and albeit slightly in most of these, but pretty much every offensive category, he slightly improved on from the year before. Batting average, on base, slugging, OPS, they all pretty much improved a little bit, but was consistent. Consistency is valuable, and I think Alec Bohm is consistent. Does he freak out and spaz out and throw his helmet and maybe wear his emotions on his sleeve a little bit too much? I think that's what Rob Thompson and the staff was telling you at the end of the year. He is prone to slumps, but guess what? Newsflash, all Major League Baseball players are. I gave Alec Bohm an A-. You know, defensively, he is what he is. He's never going to become a power guy, but I thought it was overall a really good year for Alec Bohm, so I'm going to give him an A-. Ice Queen, the floor is yours.
Professor Fluff, an A-?
Yeah. I mean, the guy, you know, it's good numbers. Do I want his on base over 300? Yeah, I would love his on base over 300. But you know, when you're putting up the numbers he did, 99 RBIs or 97 RBIs in back-to-back years, fourth in doubles. Defensively, I'm not going to roast him because he's improved and he is what he is. So, yeah, I think it's for what Alec Bohm is supposed to be on this team, I think that's a really nice season from him. What do you got?
Okay. So
daggers out.
Pew, pew, pew. All right. So again, although I look at the postseason with a bigger weight.
Mickey Durkin does say the best hair on the team. So, I mean, does that count for anything in your grade book?
I'm not grading based off style. Hair doesn't win baseball games. But yes, if we're going off of vibes and style, it's a whole different grading criteria. For Alec Bohm, as you mentioned, did finish off the season 4th in doubles across Major League Baseball, top 20 in RBIs, finished 3rd in walks. And he, as we know, Mr. Home Run Derby himself, an all-star. He did absolutely take a major step forward this season. You saw the maturity, you saw the growth, at least in most of the season. He had a career high with his doubles, his .779 OPS, and have over a 300. He was a 300 batting average. I'm sorry, over 300 batting average with runners in scoring position. That was one of the areas that he thrived for this team until he didn't, unfortunately. So you saw a huge step for him to be someone you can rely on in big moments that would be able to get you an RBI, find the gaps. It wasn't a lot of home runs for Alec Bohm, which is ironic that he was in the home run derby, but it was him being able to just get doubles, get singles, whatever it took to help this team score. And so for Alec Bohm, that is something that I thought was a huge improvement for him, that he could be the guy that kind of filled in the gaps. You weren't going to get home runs from him, but you were going to get RBIs. And when you look at how he started off the season, 28 RBIs in the month of April, 17 in May, 21 in June. But then in total, from July, August, and September, Alec Bohm hit a total of 29 RBIs in those 3 months. So that is what he brought to this team. He was the guy that was able to help when you had runners in scoring position, drive runners home, and then once July hit, he no longer was able to do that. Of course, as a result, his numbers did drop as well. September, we know he was dealing with the wrist injury, the hand injury. Yeah. So for September to be having a split of 170, 204, 298 with a .502 OPS, you can justify that. Maybe you're not fully 100%. Maybe it was going to take him time to get back. But of course, the other concern was him getting benched game 2 of the NLDS, the emotions we saw throughout that. And I chopped it up to his youth. I chopped it up to him just needing to learn how to better manage his emotions. And if you can bottle that passion in a more productive way, so rather than slamming your helmet, throwing your bat, the very obvious frustrations, bottle it and use it in a different way. I don't mind the passion because I wish there were more guys on this team that showed some life, some energy, some pulse, some passion. But he did, of course, struggle in the postseason. And in his 13 at-bats across the NLDS, had just one hit, one of those other guys that was giving you zeros across the board. 1 hit, 1 walk in his 13 at-bats across the 4 games in the NLDS. We saw him. I think the reason I also, outside of his stats, graded him lower is when you look at, especially in the NLDS, I think back to game 2 when he was brought in off the bench and swung at the very first pitch. There were moments that Alec Bohm, I felt like almost not gave up, but was careless. And you'd have whoever was batting before him give you a really good deep, amount of pitches that they were able to rattle off. They were patient, or it'd be an opportunity where you see guys getting on base. And then to me, I felt like Alec Bohm started bailing teams out. So the guy that was getting you RBIs and great with runners in scoring position in the beginning of the season then became the guy that when he stepped up with runners on was bailing opponents out by just swinging at anything. And it was kind of like, oh well. Pop up. Oh, well, I tried. And it just, something changed. I don't know what happened, but mentally, emotionally, something changed with Alec Bohm. All that to say, I give him a C. I think that you cannot have, I don't mind you struggling. I know. I don't mind you struggling because Bryce Harper had some slumps as well. But the way that he just changed and became this careless, almost nonchalant, kind of going through the motions.
I'm never sending my kids to LaSalle University to take Professor Washington's classes. That's going to sink their GPA.
It's no wonder your one student never came back.
Okay, Tyler. I think he took major strides, and I thought he was phenomenal for the first half of the season.
80%.
But from July on, he just became this guy that you never know what you were going to get from Alec Bohm.
No equity with Professor Washington.
He was very inconsistent.
Wow.
Sometimes you got poise and composure and maturity and smiles, and sometimes you got he was in his own feelings, sulking,
all right, Tyler,
frustrated.
Let's see. I'm curious where you fall in on this one. Are you going to split us? I have an A- for the man. Renee has a C.
Yeah,
Where are you?
I think a C is too harsh here. I do. I don't think it's an A- here because I think, Renee, you do have validity to the second half of the season
It
was not
just so
particularly
careless
strong. I think that
at times
there were way too many at-bats that emblemized what you saw in that NLDS game where not where he came off the bench, but I think he went first pitch digging too much, later in the second half of the season. But I do also think there's validity to the fact that, as Jamie mentioned, most of the offensive categories went in the right direction. The K rate went down. The chase rate went up. He forced pitchers to come into the zone, especially early in the season, and to a point where through 204 at-bats for Alec Bohm this season with a 1-0 count, which is not something he saw a ton of in the second half of the season or, heading down to the stretch run into the playoffs. If he was ahead in the count 1-0, he hit 299 this year. Ahead in the count 2-1, he hit 280. Ahead in the count 3-0, and obviously it was a small sample size, he hit 385. He did his most damage when he was a little bit more patient at the plate than what we saw in the postseason and into the stretch run. But Bohm's numbers across the board did, improve for the most part. Similar amount of RBIs. The home runs did go down a little bit. Doubles shoot way up. The OBP is up a hair. The average was up a hair. The slugging was up a hair. Hitting the less double plays if you have any kind of count for that. Now, granted, that's not entirely if you hit a ground ball with nobody on, nobody considers the double play. He just happened to hit 23 of them last year and lead Major League Baseball. I think Alec Bohm was much better defensively. He was a -5 outs above replacement last year. He was a 5 according to Baseball Savant this year. That's a pretty substantial jump. If you care about D-WAR, he was a 0.1, which basically says he is an average defender across the board, which I never thought he would even become an average defensive third baseman. I think it was a very strong season for the most part for Alec Bohm, a first-time All-Star. The postseason is going to leave a sour taste in your mouth. There's no doubt about it. The final month of the season probably will leave a sour taste in your mouth because of the fact that there was a dip across the board in just about every category. But I am going to give Alec Bohm a B+ for the year. I am.
Okay, listen. I hear you.
Don't be.
I hear you guys.
If you're gonna stick those daggers in people,
numbers.
leave them.
No, I mean he was great with bases loaded. He was batting at a 400 average with guys in scoring position and 2 out. He had 38 RBIs in those scenarios.
Actually, let me move it to a B. I'm gonna give him a B for the year.
You're bumping it down.
I'm gonna bump it down to a B. I'm thinking about it. I think the A, he had an A first half.
Definitely.
And probably a C second half.
With an injury in the mix.
D- second half. I'll go with the B. I think I'm going to drop it one half of the letter grade.
Phillies have 2 moves up their sleeve from a roster construction standpoint, where if they do want to get spicy and change things up, the 2 spiciest pieces they can trade are Alec Bohm and Ranger Suarez. If Alec Bohm were to get moved, like I'm just making this up. Let's say Isaac Paredes isn't playing third for the Cubs next year, and they had interest in Bohm, and you could get like a Suzuki for a Bohm and maybe throw something else in, and then you can go get an Alec Bregman, as people in the chat were saying, like just sign Alec Bregman. Yeah. He's one of the best. I'm all for change like that, but I don't think they're going to move Bohm just for the sake of moving him. I think he's, he's still, I guess you can use the word promising. What is he, 28 now, 29?
He's only 28.
So I still think he has another season or 2 of potentially reaching a max out for him. So I still think there's a little bit of room to grow.
I thank him for raising his trade value, because if he is someone that the Phillies decide to move, I think he's due
about $9 million, which is still fairly cost controlled for a
28. Turned 28 in the month of August. Had a tremendous start to the season. Definitely put himself on the map, became much more of a household name for people to recognize. He definitely raised his value overall, but you can't have, I don't mind a slump. It's how you're slumping. Like, you're going to have the ups and downs and the ebbs and flows of a season, but to have, and I know in the chat, War Machine said, like, dude doesn't even want to be here. There were times that I was like, what the heck happened with Alec Bohm? Because he just became this guy that was so nonchalant and didn't seem like he was happy to be here. And obviously, if you're struggling, you're not going to be smiling and upbeat. I get that. But just the body language and the swinging at first pitches, he thrived in big moments. He thrived when there were guys on and 2 outs or bases loaded. But then it swung, and you can't have that big of a change. So interesting. And Professor Fluff and Professor analytics over here.
But
I hear you. I see you.
By the way, the early portion of the season, like I'm looking at his hit spray chart and I'm clicking on just random ones throughout the spray chart.
Sure.
And a lot of the stuff back up the middle and into the left center field gap was in the first half of the season, which doesn't necessarily tell you that that's just the decrease and that is what it is. But the balls that he was squaring up, and his square up rate was great. He was almost every 1/3 of his at bats ended up being a squared up baseball. But a large majority of them were earlier in the season where I'm clicking on some random ones. He's back up the middle. He's left center field gap for the doubles. That was where he was most effective in the early portions of the season.
Yeah,
All right,
I know. Quick point, though, before you, because I want to plug for people. K-Red, yes, the game that he was benched was when they won. But also, share your grades. You guys are sharing your thoughts on Alec. We still have Trea Turner and Garrett Stubbs, so share your grades for these guys. I'm curious to see who they agree with.
Yeah,
or where people stand.
Let's take another moment here to tell you about some of our friends.
We'll get there. Don't worry.
There we go. And I was with some of these friends yesterday, and that's the lovely people over at TrueMark Financial Credit Union. And TrueMark is located right here in the Delaware Valley. They're headquartered in Fort Washington. They have 24 area locations around the Delaware Valley, and they are a team you should have in your quarter. Because, look, whether it's a HELOC, a home equity line of credit you want to take out, which I did years previous, and I wish I was with TrueMark. The benefits of a credit union. They do so much great stuff in the community. Yesterday, I was at their golf outing at Talamore Country Club in Ambler, and that's to benefit their foundational charity, which is financial literacy amongst children and the youth, which I think is a very, very important thing that schools just don't handle. So it's great that TrueMark is trying to get ahead of that. They have mortgage specialists that can offer you loan options and terms that'll help you assess your finances and your credit score to determining your borrowing capacity. You can save for down payments and budget for closing costs. All of this and more is available at your hands with TrueMark Financial. They're federally insured by the NCUA and an equal opportunity lender. For more information, visit truemark.com/PHLY.
All right, and while we're talking about some great financial decisions, let's talk about some great hardware decisions you can make for some upgrades in your house. If you're looking to have anything fixed around electrical, plumbing, heating, cooling, anything else you've got going on, well, Ace Hardware Home Services that is the place to go. And they are so thorough with their support they provide you. From the moment you walk in their doors, the moment you pick up that phone to call them, the moment you reach out, Ace Hardware Home Services will make sure you have the professionals with decades of experience that can support you. Now, they want to make sure with their helpful hardware folks, as we know that jingle as well, that they are the home service and repair place that you trust and can go to, because they do have so many trusted professionals to keep your home functioning well for you and your neighbors. And with Ace Hardware Home Services today, they not only bring the experience of local plumbers and techs that can handle everything from repairs and seasonal maintenance to installations and upgrades, they also bring the understanding. They're going to listen to your goals. They're going to hear what you're looking for. They're going to make sure that until the job is fully completed and you're satisfied, that they're going to help provide you with support. And then in addition to that, they have other benefits such as free estimates on equipment installation and replacement with their trusted advisors and options that are best suited for you, your home, and your budget. They also have emergency services available. If you ever need them, they are there for you. And then also they just have the overall service that you can trust and satisfaction guaranteed. So if you're looking to get anything done around that wide range of residential maintenance, installation, home repair services, plumbing, heating, cooling, electrical, whatever it may be, visit Ace Hardware Home Services today. You can check them out online actually at acehardwarehomeservices.com to get started on your next project with our friends at Ace Hardware Home Services.
And this is the PHLY Phillies show, brought to you by Ace Hardware Home Services. If you're a Sixers fan,
saw the news.
Don't forget to check out Devon, Derek, and Kyle. They do a great year. Happy NBA season to all that celebrate.
Oh, you didn't see the news?
No, I did. That's why I'm getting there.
I'm sorry.
I'm
sorry, Professor Fluff.
Joel Embiid and Paul George going to miss the season opener tomorrow.
Joel's out for the week, and Paul George will be reevaluated at the end of the week.
It's fine.
So they're not just missing the opener.
It's fine.
They're out for at least the week.
Being intelligent about this, I said to give Paul George an extra week or two. There's no reason to push anything for October basketball.
For a
Joel
injury.
Embiid,
Everything's fine. This is fine, guys.
He's always hurt. He really likes the Packers. He enjoys football. There's Champions League this week, right? Maybe he'll be watching that. That's great.
Everything's fine.
All right, back to the Phillies. So there's your 30 seconds on the
Alec
Sixers
Bohm
update.
was never the same after his injury.
As it breaks mid-show that
Joel Embiid's never been the
two of our
same.
three
Or have any of
superstars.
us ever been the same after an injury? I can't run the same
what's
way
more
anymore.
Philadelphia than two of the three stars of a team being hurt before
This
the
is
opening
why
game?
I've been.
Good times.
You know what?
All right, let's pick it up.
This is
now
why I grade the way that I grade.
with Mr. Trea Turner. Now, my gut grade for Trea Turner before I dove into everything, when I'm just like mentally accessing the year in my head,
Okay.
I said C+. That was like the grade I wrote down in the beginning. Now, I was shocked to find increases in batting average, OBP, OPS, OPS plus. His K rate went down. The stolen base bet he made with Bryson Stott prior to the year actually tanked. It was cut in half. I need to see more stolen bases from Trea. I was surprised his numbers did go up compared to the previous year here in Philadelphia. Fascinating grades. I'm really curious what you two are going to give him. I'm going to give him a B, and I acknowledge that feels high, but it's hard for me to roast him too hard. There was 2 months in this season where, he was winning NL Players of the Week, and for the month of April and May, you might have said he was one of the best players in the league and looked like the $300 million man, much like other players on this team came out of a bad slump after London. At times would give you flashes of that, 2-month run he had. But overall, I feel like there was enough good in the beginning of the year to kind of carry him to a B. I'm surprised I left the C+ grade, but that's what I have for Trea Turner. Need more. You're a $300 million man. You should be getting minimum A minuses. We need an A or an A+ out of you for the Phillies to win a title. It's plain and simple. A B is not letting him off the hook, I don't think. I think it's just, it was fine. It was okay. Defensively, he's a butcher. That's not going to get any better.
Yeah.
B-, I think maybe I'll settle into. Down from a B. So final grade, final answer as I talk it out, B-.
Okay.
And I know that's going to be probably on the high end. Maybe Tyler might be similar, but I think Tyler's going to be in the C range. What's Professor Ice Queen? And wait, what did he say? But Jamie, what strain of reefers you smoking? Depends what time of the day that is, my friend. I mean, look, he improved a lot of offensive categories from the year prior, which is what I was grading him on. B-. It's not good. I mean, when you're paying a guy $300 million and he's giving you a B- output, that's not good.
No.
It's just not, it's not a C-. So what do you got?
Okay. So
Give him an F. Say it with your chest.
I'm definitely not great. I'm not in the same area of you in terms of grades.
Well,
by
know
no
that.
surprise. There's a big surprise for you guys. So when you look at the 2 seasons for Trea Turner, you look at last year, I know we talked about the turnaround and the standing ovation on our show yesterday. Trea Turner obviously was bad until August, until the standing ovation of last year. Then you come into this year expecting we're going to get a full season of Trea Turner post-ovation. We're going to get that Trea. We're going to get Trea that's going to be consistent. He started off strong, and we talked about at the beginning of the year. He was a guy that him and Bryce were off to this MVP start to their season. And then he began, the injury happened, the hamstring happened. And I, again, understand, like we mentioned, no one's the same after an injury. But for Trea Turner to have so much of a fall, his 2 best parts of the season were the start of the season and when he came back from his hamstring. He was phenomenal in those initial games of July, coming back off his hamstring. He had 10 home runs. He was great. And then he turned back into a pumpkin. And I think, much like Alec Bohm, the reason I grade Trea Turner much more harshly is because of that contract. Is because of, 9 years left? 20 years left?
Yeah, I believe it's 9.
30 years left? It's a lot of years left on this deal.
Lifetime contract.
It's basically a lifetime contract. And to see how much he struggled in his at-bats. Fastballs were an issue for him. His outs above average, his play at shortstop, his errors that he had. Again, 23 errors last year, 17 errors this season in 35 less games. And in both seasons was one of the worst shortstops statistically in terms of errors across Major League Baseball. And not to mention what you expect of him as your number 2 hitter is to be the guy that you want to talk big 3. It's like him, Bryce, and Kyle are your expectations to be leading this team. And to have that 11-year deal and be a guy that now we're talking about, should we move him to outfield? Can he help us at shortstop? He left us with way more questions than answers this season. And in the postseason, actually was weirdly one of the better guys. And by better, because people like JT were 0 for 11. Trea Turner in the postseason did have 3 hits, which should not be a great thing. That's a great stat.
No,
that's sad. That's one of the better.
Tommy Edman was a trade deadline piece, and he's an NLCS MVP.
And
we need
had
more.
like 3 hits in one game. He had a 3-run home run. So 3 hits, 2 runs in his 15 at-bats in the 4 games played. But to me, the issue is the in-season drop-off. And obviously, I would like more from him in the playoffs as well. But as mentioned, the ups and downs of Trea Turner this season, when you have a month like May, where he was injured, so we didn't expect anything from him, comes back in July, had those 10 home runs in July, and then in the entire month of August had 2 home runs. He had 14 runs total, 28 hits in the month of August, and was batting at 250, 280, 357 split with a 637 OPS. Beyond the numbers, it was a very rocky season for Trea. I considered a D+. I truly did, because you just have more expectation from him. And this is 2 years in a row now that he hasn't even give us 2 consecutive months of strong Trea Turner. Give us something. But I gave him a C- because, as you mentioned, he was 9th across the ML, like Major League Baseball, in terms of RBIs. He did have some, especially as I mentioned, the beginning of the season and coming out of the hamstring, showed some life, showed some promise, but it's not enough. It's very concerning for Trea Turner. I think he seems like a great guy, but I also wonder if he's the guy that's not bought in. And now I'm wondering if his demeanor and everything. I do think
they want him to become a more doubles hitter.
And I think that's the issue to me. Like, he's someone that's with 25 doubles this season, 21 home runs, 62 RBIs, 27 walks. You just need more from. These aren't good numbers. And it's not good. C-, right. And that's being polite, to be honest.
B-. Tyler, are you splitting the difference right down the middle, or what?
I have struggled with this grade.
It's a tough grade.
This is probably the hardest one for me, because
I think so too. I thought him and Bohm.
Statistically speaking, he had a very productive year. If you just cropped out a box score and a year of
the numbers are misleading.
Numbers don't lie. You've said that a billion times on this show.
The numbers are misleading.
You're so hypocritical in this situation.
No, they're not. They're misleading when you actually watch the games compared to what the numbers are.
If the statistically speaking, the guy hit almost 300 this year, despite the fact that he did have some significant dips. I think he hit 346 prior to the or right return from the injury. It was like July 13th or 14th. He was hitting 346. The chase rate is problematic for me. He was in the 16th percentile of chase rates this year. He chased at about 34% of the pitches that he saw. He hammers pitches in the strike zone. There's no question about it. In the zone, he is a monster. He hit 315 on fastballs this year, and I would guarantee you that a bulk of those fastballs come in within the zone because he drives pitches within the zone well. He also has a tendency to chase substantially, and it happened down the stretch, and it happened into the postseason. He scattered 3 hits, but I thought for a bulk of his postseason at-bats, they weren't particularly good. Then again, you could say that about everybody, right? Where everyone. I think their whole approach was poor, and there's a reason they hit 188 as a team. I really, really, really have struggled with giving Trea Turner a grade this year. Defensively, he was terrible. 17 errors this year, which is actually down from the year prior. And my apologies, guys. I forgot to show you the numbers here.
Oh, yeah.
It was the 9th most errors across baseball this year. He had 23 that last year. He had 17 this year. It's 40 errors.
35 less games.
And in 35 less games, as you made mention, it was 40 errors over the course of 2 seasons. He's not a good defensive shortstop. I just don't know what the definitive answer is right now, because your only option at this current moment is to move Bryson Stott to short, and then you probably deplete 2 defensive positions.
Make yourself worse at 2 positions.
I think that
He's your shortstop for at least 2 more years.
Yeah, I don't think Aiden Miller's readily available for a couple of seasons.
And he could
still
be a third baseman.
And I've been a big proponent of that. I think he is a third baseman, but they seem to want him to get as many reps at shortstop as possible. I guess I have to give a grade because this is part of the show, right?
Yeah. We all gave grades.
It's a tough one. I'm with you.
I think it's probably statistically like a B+ type year. The eye test tells me like a C because of some problematic issues. I'll go. I think a B- is probably fair.
Jeez,
Me and Tyler lockstep with the B- grade for Trea Turner.
That's wild.
I mean, if you look across his like April, and you brought it up, he was much better in the April and May, June portion of it.
April was great.
April he hit 361. May he missed most of May. He comes back in June, and it feels like he doesn't really miss too much of a beat. He hits 302 over the month of June, and his average goes from 343 at the end of April. Or 346 at the end of April to 332 at the end of June. And it took a little bit of a dip, but he still hit 302.
Yeah.
He had just jumped out to such a ridiculous start that it was eventually going to come back down. It's just the nature of baseball. It was a really weird year for Trea Turner because, again, statistically speaking, he was fine. And then your eyes tell you maybe there's more to it.
There's also the prism of viewing him through the $300 million man, lens. And you expect your $300 million players in Bryce Harper and Trea Turner to be at worst A-. So when you're a full grade lower than that, even if you don't go as far as you did to the C range, what me and Tyler are saying is not like good. You know what I mean?
And like that's the thing. Like a B- is bad for what
bad for a $300 million player.
My issue is, and I know like you're mentioning, the numbers are very misleading because it was not bad. And then once August, September hit, he did have a dip. The chase rate was a problem. The errors were absolutely a problem. I don't compare the Phillies guys to each other. I'm actually now looking at it like comparing to other teams. The Phillies' big three, who would you name as their big three offensively? Bryce, Trea, Kyle.
Yeah.
Comparing them to, let's say, Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, Giancarlo Stanton.
Yeah, who had a great postseason.
Let's compare them to Shohei Ohtani, Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, even though Freddie's been dealing with an injury. Like, when you compare them to Fernando Tatis, like, when you look at the other team's big three and you compare the Phillies' big three to them, that's my concern of a grade. Like, Trea Turner's numbers aren't bad, quote unquote, but they're bad for someone that you're expecting to be part of your big three, the face of the franchise, one of your superstars, to have back-to-back seasons where you have yet to string together 2-3 consecutive good months of baseball. It's a lot of up and down. You don't see that from Juan Soto and Aaron Judge. You don't see that from Shohei Ohtani and Mookie Betts in the same way. So we have higher expectations for him. But
yeah, I think that's fair. All right, the last grade to get to, Garrett Stubbs. Man, his baseball reference page stinks. Dave Dombrowski. Garrett Stubbs is loved in that building. You can just tell.
Yeah.
Dave Dombrowski, when he's talking about him at the year end, is building in every excuse about how hard it is to bat every 6 or 7 days. Does a great job catching the staff. Everybody loves him. Yada yada yada. The reality is the stat line. Look, he played in 54 games. That's not nothing. And I know JT Realmuto was hurt. Obviously, that's a big part of that. But JT Realmuto is now 33 and had some knee injuries and had some back issues. And the guy beats himself up consistently. Backup catcher is becoming, starting next year, a much more important position on this team. So if Rafael Marchand can stay healthy through the winter and through spring training, I 100% believe the job is his. If he gets around 40 or 50 games next year, you need more than 207, 296, 262. A 59 OPS plus, that's just not really Major League Baseball caliber. I'm giving him a D plus, and that's only because I can't go F on the backup catcher. You know what I mean? Like, he's fine defensively, good pop time, decent arm, got more out of the physical limitations of his body. Like, the fact that he's a Major League Baseball player blows my mind. You know what I mean? Like, when I see him out on the field, he still looks like a high school or college kid playing with Major League professionals. So, like, kudos to Garrett Stubbs. He did amazing, man. You know what I mean? Like, but I just can't give you an F. I'll give it a D plus. That's what I got.
So
And
much
to
like,
our diehards, peace out. We love you. Thank you.
much like I said, good hair doesn't win any baseball games.
He's got a great stash.
Neither does the stash. Neither
Attitude?
does the
He's happy?
playlist. Neither does. I mean, the playlist can help. That actually helps you a little bit more than the hair. It's not enough. And I think for Garrett Stubbs, especially in the season, as we talk about JT Realmuto's injuries and the fact that he's 33 years old and regressing because he's played so much in his career, this should be a prime opportunity for Garrett Stubbs to step up. And he did have some moments that caught me by surprise that I actually was not expecting of Garrett Stubbs. But as you talk about those numbers on the season, with his 59 OPS plus in 54 games, his .207 batting average, Garrett Stubbs is not reliable as a backup catcher. And I know they were mentioning it's tough for the backup catcher. You're playing once every, handful of games, but that is your role. Everybody has a role to play on this team, and you've got to be ready when your name is called upon. And to know that whenever Garrett Stubbs is playing, you feel like it's an L. You feel like, oh no, anything could happen today. You don't have any confidence in him as a backup. Had way more confidence in Rafael Marchand, who unfortunately cannot stay healthy, and hopefully that changes. So Garrett Stubbs, in his 3 seasons with the Phillies, has a .628 OPS, and as a backup catcher, has not given anything consistently, period, on any side of the ball. He only gives us cheap vibes officer, and that's cute and all, but that's got to go. The Phillies need to upgrade. They need a better backup catcher, and to keep it short, I'm giving him a D+. I think the only reason I did not give him worse, we finally agree on something. The only reason I didn't give him worse is because, to be honest, it's not his fault he's out there. They should have somebody else playing in front of him. He shouldn't be out there.
It's Rafael
He shouldn't be
Marchand.
out there.
Tyler, what do you got?
Do we have to waste time on this guy?
Hey, it's 54 games this year.
He played a substantial amount of games this year for somebody who is not a major league player.
Yeah.
That is.
You guys talked about the pop time. It's nice to have a dearth of catchers who have good arms behind the plate. And as you said, for a guy who's 5'10" and weighs 12 pounds, it's pretty impressive to get that kind of arm behind a guy behind the plate. Guys, he has hit 200 balls into play in the last 2 seasons, 85 last year and 115 this year. You guys want to take a guess as to how many he's barreled?
It's 200, you said?
200 balls put into play in the last 2 seasons.
Less than half.
Do you want to take a guess at how many he's barreled?
I'm going to say 23.
0. Garrett Stubbs hasn't barreled a baseball in 2 seasons. Last year, he was
that's bad.
a 204 hitter with a sub 275 OBP.
First,
this
I wanted
year,
to say 6, and I was like, that's disrespectful. I'll go a little higher.
With a 296 OBP. It would have been nice to give him that way. This guy's just not a major league hitter. You're right, Jamie. It's good for the dude for getting this far.
Yeah.
It's impressive to be here at your size.
He's 31 years old.
Your attributes, but for a team that is going to need to rely upon, you're probably going to need 50 games out of your backup catcher next season.
Yeah, that's a real possibility.
If JT plays 110-ish, that's probably, if he gets to 120, that's great. It means he stayed healthy and was feeling good.
Yeah.
But you're probably going to need in the 40 to 45 to 50 games from your backup catcher this year. It can't be Garrett Stubbs. Rafael Marchand is probably the guy.
He looked promising this year.
But that is indicative, as we talked about on Monday, of him staying healthy. And you don't know if that's the case either.
Yeah, and to have 164 at-bats and you give us 4 doubles, 1 triple, 1 home run, 11 RBIs, 17 walks, was hit by a pitch 4 times. So thank you. At least you got hit by a pitch 4 times. Struck out 50, 5 stolen bags, and 34 hits in 164 at-bats. It's just he's not giving anything. And like you mentioned, we all know the reality is next season they're going to need a backup catcher that actually can play and can actually be a good backup catcher. It's not Garrett Stubbs. So, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, we are going to be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. We got some more grades to dish out, some news and information on, jerseys, World Series documentaries, a ton of stuff to get into. Some tough grades today. I thought Trea Turner and Alec Bohm were the 2 perhaps toughest grades to give out on the team. So again, if you want to throw in the comments section your grades for everyone, we'd love to read them. If you want to hit that thumbs up button before you get out of here, please do so. And of course, make sure you're always checking out allphly.com. Flyers and Sixers are underway. Eagles, of course, underway. We got the best writers in the city here. And we'll check in with our own Jim Salisbury one of these days. We still haven't done our postseason autopsy with Jim. So we'll do that coming up as well. But for Tyler Zulli, Renee Washington, I'm Jamie Lynch. Thanks for hanging out with us today, and have a great rest of the Tuesday, everyone. See ya.
We all silly like the mayor.